I'm delighted you're here, and welcome to Science in Slippers after a long day of being a human. You're attempting to relax by cuddling up on the couch or going to bed. You've found a peaceful, small section of the internet where science gets curiosity and soft-spokenness. Put on pajamas tonight as we delve into the fantastical depths of the mind, investigating the current state of knowledge about dreams and the adventure your mind tells you when you're asleep is full of bizarre tales. Abstract-looking icy brainwaves with a few surprises that might just alter your perspective on sleep. I sincerely hope that this video won't, though it's intriguing that it keeps you up. If it does, at least you'll be before we start. I would advise you to learn about fair trade if you like these slow. If you want to support the growth of this slumbering tiny channel, Science Travels, I would be quite appreciative if you could hit the like button to subscribe, or simply write a comment letting me know what time it is and where you're watching from. Okay, take a big breath and relax in your corner of the night. Let's start our silent journey into the dreaming mind. What is a dream exactly? It seems like a straightforward topic. But articulating a dream is rather like attempting to embrace a cloud. You can sort of go around it, but it eludes your grasp before you can grasp something substantial at its fundamentally. A dream is a sequence of ideas, feelings, and sensations that you beamed as the original streaming service that your mind develops while you sleep, directly from the production studio of your mind. Occasionally dramatic, ridiculous, frightening, and most of the time totally dreams are absurd. But even though they are strange, they feel real while they are occurring. You might arrive late to your high or fly fall and dispute with a tuxedo-wearing walrus, even if you graduated 10 years ago, and in the dream you're convinced that everything makes sense. But why does your brain act in this way? Let's move on. Back in the prehistoric era, before mankind had sleep or neurobiology laboratories, but in ancient Mesopotamia, dreams were regarded as Egyptians even employed qualified dream interpreters to decipher messages from the gods, such as sleep-time oracles, if you had a camouflage dream, or a flying crocodile, in which case someone most but likely had a scroll. Fast forward to Aristotle, and other ancient Greek philosophers joined in the action, and he was one of the first to propose that the dreamer's body and mind could be the source of their dreams. Instead of coming from supernatural origins, the notion that dreams have a unique significance persisted for centuries, followed by the early 20th and 19th centuries, and Sigmund, the man who brought dreams back into style. Freud believed in dreams, revealed hidden desires, and were the royal way to the unconscious. Anxieties and forbidden desires, many of which were highly dramatic and most likely not completely true, but it did stimulate a great deal of in-chair analysis, and at least some. Carl Jung, Freud's old protege, had several difficult talks, rather different path, thinking that dreams linked us to a common human experience, which he referred to as the collective. According to Jung, unconscious symbols and dreams had profound archetypal meaning that transcending personal narratives. But this is where science leans into philosophy and asks, what if I take a look rather than making assumptions? Modern neuroscience adopts a more grounded approach. I apologize, but your dreams are concealing important details about your mother. Freud experts are now studying the brain's activity during sleep, and they discovered that dreams are strongly associated with several stages of sleep. Most notably, rapid eye movement is referred to as REM sleep, and your brain is surprisingly active at this period, sometimes nearly as active. As your heart rate slightly increases and your eyes dart around beneath your eyelids when you're awake, and, most likely for the best, your body becomes momentarily paralyzed. Otherwise, you would be reenacting your dreams on your pillow. Dreams can happen at different periods of sleep, often known as non-REM sleep. However, these are typically less concrete, vivid, and more realistic in general than the wild movie fantasies that REM is typically responsible for the dramatic plot twists and talking giraffes. The problematic part is that scientists are still not totally in agreement about whether or not dreaming is solely biological. Does your brain continue to whisper symbolic messages in your mind, or is it defragmenting itself like an old hard drive? The enigma is further compounded by the fact that not everyone dreams in the same way, and that some people claim not to dream at all. Yet in reality, dreams are notoriously difficult to remember. Slippery in terms of memory. You may awaken with a flawless recall of a dream in which your pet hamster appears in a space opera, but it vanishes like mist by when you're done cleaning your teeth. If you've ever been annoyed while trying, the brain doesn't store dreams, so don't worry if you can't remember them. In reality, the parts of the brain that encode memories are the same ones that store other memories. For example, during REM sleep, the hippocampus is less active, which is most likely why, though certain dreams do linger with us, our dream memories usually disappear more quickly than a snatcher. We are the ones who tend to be vivid, frightening, and emotionally strong, and the mental archive burn a little brighter. Now, here's a playful variation. Researchers have discovered that dreams frequently mirror what's happening in your waking life. This phenomenon is known as the continuity hypothesis. Postulates that you encounter emotions and even media on a daily basis. Dreams can be influenced by consumption. So if you binge-watched 5, you got into a fight with your employer and ate hot food in a detective show, If you eat noodles before bed, don't be shocked if your dreams feature a crime motivated by chili. Naturally, dreams aren't limited to everyday leftovers. They can also be extremely. Paul McCartney is one of the numerous artists, singers, and inventors who have stated that their work is influenced by their dreams. Famously heard Mary Shelley's song Today in a Dream. According to Mendeleev, the periodic table, Dmitri and Frankenstein dreamer, and said it arrived to him in a dream when you're asleep. So even while dreams can be weird, they're also a place where your brain can run wild without being constrained by logic or physics can practice. Imagine, experiment, and reflect without you having to do anything. It's somewhat similar to going to the movies, with the exception that the director, set designer, and none of the cast members understand what they're doing, but that's a part of magic. Dreams are complex, enigmatic, and incredibly human. They're the peaceful evidence that the mind is anything but still active even while we're sleeping. Thus, keep in mind that you're going to star in your own movie the next time you're not asleep. Midnight adventure, unfiltered and improvised. Sleep tight. Let's speak about sleep, perhaps with a talking penguin. Sleep is frequently thought of as one of the backstage crews that enable your fantasies. Long continuous sleep that feels like an 8-hour respite in consciousness. Yet sleeping under the hood is a really intricate and well-planned cycle. It has stages, patterns, rhythms, and more like a symphony than a straightforward off switch. Sleep architecture, as structural scientists refer to it, sounds extremely let's have a peaceful walk, as it's amazing and a little pricey. Using the sleep no hard hats needed template. Sleep is separated into two. There are three main types of sleep: REM sleep, non-REM sleep, and non-REM sleep. Phases with the useful labels N1, N2, and N3, which, although they resemble Star Wars droids, are only various levels of these phases of unconsciousness, alternate approximately every 90 minutes. Imagine it as a looping playlist that plays continuously in your head all night long, but with fewer ads, and stage N1 with a little more drool. The gentle when you're just starting to nod off. You're in the lightest stage of sleep, known as descent, somewhat conscious of your surroundings, but your brain has begun to change gears. You may have limb twitches or abrupt awakenings due to a feeling of falling. Don't be alarmed. It's only your soul departing your body. As the neurological system begins to malfunction, brain waves begin to gradually transition from fast-moving beta and alpha waves to slower-moving theta waves. Twilight zone between waking and dreaming. You may claim you weren't asleep if someone wakes you up during N1 at all, which is both technically accurate and marginally stage of delusions. Enter light sleep, and now you're descending farther into. Your heartbeat slows, your body temperature somewhat decreases, and your eye motions stop now, since this is where your brain starts to take sleep a little more seriously. Although you're not quite dreaming yet, you're surely not answering calls at this point, because the brain starts displaying tiny electrical activity spikes known as sleep spindles and K. Although these titles resemble indie rock bands, complexities are actually defense systems that keep you by ignoring outside noises, such as a car horn outside your head. You can fall asleep. Use a well-timed spindle to gently quiet it, and you'll spend around half your at this point. Night is the mainstay of sleep. It's not particularly showy but remarkably crucial for preserving the N3 deep rest stage. The major one is sleep, which is also referred to as slow wave sleep or delta sleep. The thorough clean cycle on your brain's dishwasher in N3 is the regenerative phase. Massive, ponderous bursts of activity that pass through your body in slow delta waves. Your body heals and grows tissues in the cortex, which is like waves lapping a beach, boosts the immune system and builds bone and muscle in developing children, produces growth hormone here as well. Regretfully, grown-ups don't grow taller. Yet it's quite challenging to wake up while still enjoying the advantages of this cellular spring cleaning. Someone who has just woken up from a deep slumber will probably be drowsy, confused, and somewhat irritated, like to someone being pulled from a warm bath by a foghorn. During this phase, dreams are possible, but they are typically more like static-laced thought bursts than vivid ones. Emotive tone or hazy impressions. The true magic of the film occurs. Welcome to REM sleep, also known as the dream factory. This is the enigmatic area where your muscles are illuminated by your brain. Your eyes dart around behind your closed lids as though they're going to go limp. The majority of your most time is spent watching an invisible tennis match in the room. The brain sandbox is a place where odd and vivid dreams occur, anecdotes, nonsensical reasoning, and the odd celebrity appearance. But REM is more than just amusement. Additionally, it is essential for processing emotions, consolidating memories, and some experts even think that REM sleep aids in creativity by helping you sort through the day's emotional jumble. Such as, here's the odd thing about REM: after a really crazy parade, your brain is vacuuming up confetti, quite active, occasionally even more so than when you're awake, but your body totally motionless. In fact, you feel a brief paralysis. REM atonia is a condition that stops you from acting without your dreams. Your brain's safety mechanism warns. Suppose you're being pursued by a giant jelly bean, to which your body replies, "Hey, I'll just lie here all the way." As the night goes on, each REM phase lengthens. The initial cycle may be just dreams might last anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour in the morning, feel more vivid, stranger, and longer as the night go on. Cycle, thus combining everything. Your brain begins with light sleep and N1 drifts, enters N2, sinks into N3 for some intensive maintenance, and then enters REM for a little late night theater before it begins again. This entire cycle lasts around you repeated 4 to 6 times a night for 90 minutes. But the ratios shift early in the evening. You'll sleep deeper and have more REM sleep later, as though your mind arranges upkeep tasks first, then relaxes for a while. Entertainment. Why architecture is important, and why is any of this important? Because stress, coffee, and blue light can disturb the architecture of sleep, or that existential crisis in the middle of the night that interferes with everything else. You might not fall asleep deeply, or your REM cycle may be interrupted, which can cause you to wake up feeling sleepy, dehydrated, and somewhat deceived by your own sleep. And biology is a meticulously regulated cycle that involves each stage playing its role, and being aware of this cycle might improve the quality of sleep. You can maintain a consistent sleep schedule by respecting the architecture, but you don't have to become a sleep technologist. Reducing light before bed and avoiding coffee too late in the day can improve the brain conducts its best work in silence, effectively, and without waking you up to boast about it, so that when you go to sleep tonight, keep in mind that your brain is going to begin a masterfully planned exercise that includes waves, spindles, and dream sequences. Your body and mind will appreciate you even if you don't remember everything. The topic of why humans dream has plagued philosophers and scientists for ages, and drowsy poets for generations. And no matter how advanced our technology is, thinking late at night about the fact that we still don't know for sure that dreams that still exists, a nightly digression into storytelling, is one of the few genuinely enigmatic facets of the human experience. Our brains insist to communicating without the use of scripts, logic, or even fundamental continuation. While some dreams have a profound message, others are just strange. After returning to school, you find yourself being pursued by a huge duck. In a store, what possible use may roller skates have? And yet your brain made the effort to create the entire productions, sounds, images, and feelings while you were unconsciously. A lot of researchers think that dreams are connected to memory. Throughout the day, your brain gathers a mountain of information, meets facts, talks, lunch menus, disappointments, and stray at night. It must sort through all of that mental clutter. According to the memory consolidation idea, dreams are a type of mental filing system that is part of the cleanup process. System in which your brain determines what to communicate to that enigmatic entity, what to discard, and what to keep. Location where students who are studying can find fascinating lost socks and forgotten passwords intensely, or pick up a new ability. They typically experience more REM sleep later on, and yes, technically, they occasionally even dream about what they've been learning. Even if your ideal self might mistake calculus for cartoon creatures, cramming in your sleep is real. Another theory is that dreams aid in the brain's processing of emotions while we are in REM sleep. Exhibits intriguing behavior, with emotional areas such as the amygdala becoming active while when stress-related chemicals calm down. Your mind can relive emotionally charged experiences. It's similar to having a mental therapist who is willing to simulate your fears and anxieties without the full weight of those emotions. Unpleasant exchanges, but with more fantastical surroundings than in your dream, where you were coolly debating with your ex while perched atop a sluggish elephant. That could have been it's also thought of as the brain's method of signaling, "Hey, I'm working through it." According to this view, dreams serve as a sort of threat simulator. The evolved brain's method of getting us ready for threats in real life by going through hypothetical situations where you were attacked, chased, or late for an exam that you didn't learn. How your brain functions in a class you have never taken. React to stressful situations in a way that is basically a little out of control. Much practice, and those who are raised in riskier surroundings frequently experience more vivid dreams, as though their minds are constantly on high alert, even while you're asleep. So when you dream that a building is crumbling, when you attempt to recite the alphabet backwards, it might just be your instincts practicing a fire drill late at night. Not every theory is evolutionary or effective. Some are simply mechanical, according to the activation synthesis hypothesis, which provides explanations. Dreams are essentially caused by sporadic electrical impulses that occur in the brainstem during REM sleep. Pictures, memories, emotions, and your brain's storyteller, the cerebral cortex, and the chief attempts to make it all make sense, but it doesn't always succeed, which explains the talking ducks and your third's unexpected presence. According to this perspective, a great teacher's fantasies about a pirate ship aren't meaningful stories. There's also the belief that they're your brain making the most of an extremely odd and impromptu circumstance. Dreaming aids in cognitive growth, especially for young infants, who dream far more than adults. Dreams are frequently more fantastical and strange, with talking animals and magical abilities, flying, changing, creating bizarre new realms. According to some academics, it's like a Pixar film every night. Dream exercises assist the growing brain build its capacity for problem solving and emotional intelligence. Therefore, your youngster isn't being ridiculous when they tell you that they battled a spaghetti dragon to save a cloud. Even for adults, dreaming may play a role in the development of new mental pathways, role in problem solving and creativity. Have you ever been unable to get anything done before bed? Problem and suddenly woke up with a sophisticated solution that isn't magic? Paul is a well-known illustration of how your brain can work silently during the night shift without interruptions or reasoning. The chemist August Kelly and McCartney thinking up the tune to Today. He had a dream about a snake biting its own tail, which led him to the benzene structure. Dreams about molecules let the mind to go in directions it could not have thought of when they awaken. They release us from regulations, and occasionally that liberty results in understanding. Yet in spite of all these explanations, memory processing is still emotional. There is no one explanation for the problem of categorizing. Danger, rehearsal, dream synthesis, and problem solving has prevailed. It's most probable that dreaming fulfills several functions simultaneously. Once, your mind juggles cleaning the home while watching a late-night variety show, solving riddles, practicing survival situations, and occasionally musical number for enjoyment. That's the peculiar beauty of dreaming. It's not always neat, logical, but it's unquestionably human. Every night, your mind conjures up tales for an audience of one story that you don't often recall but that influences your feelings, recollections, and even your mind. So the next time you find yourself in that peaceful dream state, just keep in mind that your brain is sorting in the background, not being lazy, digesting, envisioning, and, should it choose to do so, transforming your uncle into a talking cactus, is only a step in the process. You have a mind, sleep soundly. Lots of dreams in the future. Have you ever pondered which area of your brain is in charge of that dream? We're attempting to take a test in a marshmallow-filled swimming pool. Or why your fantasies are sometimes they feel like barely coherent montages of leftovers, and other times they are loaded with deep emotion. Ideas. The solution is found in a delicate area of the brain rather than in a single area. Nocturnal dance throughout multiple locations, each with a distinct function. Let's begin with the prefrontal cortex. By day, in the theater of the dreaming imagination, the responsible adult present, the planner, the rational thinker, and the internal. It's a loud voice saying, maybe don't send that email, in all caps, engaged in impulse control and logical decision-making. Yet when you fall, this area of your brain takes a quick nap on its own when you're asleep, especially during REM sleep. It calms down, moves aside, and allows the rest of the brain to take over, leading to irrational dreams, pushing boundaries and frequently going utterly crazy without the prefrontal cortex. Keeping an eye on things allows the brain to integrate concepts and visuals in the most unrestricted, unedited manner. It's as if your inner editor has left the room, and other parts are lighting while the art department is now going crazy. For instance, during REM sleep, the amygdala becomes especially active. Deep within the brain, this almond-shaped area is in charge of processing feelings, including fear, anger, and pleasure. So when you discover if you find yourself in a dream where someone dressed as your childhood pet is chasing you through an airport, you can thank you for boosting your emotional intensity. The amygdala is the brain region that makes even when the plot is completely nonsensical. Dreams seem significant because REM slows down the brain's stress response systems. You might relive strong emotions in a comparatively low-stakes setting, meaning that while you may experience fear or excitement in a dream, without the heart-pounding fear of imminent danger, followed by the hippocampus, the librarian of your brain, is charged of forming and structuring memories. It is intimately related to dreaming as well, particularly when those dreams include familiar or actual locations. Faces. The hippocampus aids in retrieving the foundational elements of your dreams. The song that has been playing in your head, the restaurant you passed earlier in the day, and your second-grade teacher who mysteriously emerges as a karate champion in a dream. But the hippocampus isn't completely internet during REM sleep, which could explain why dream recollections are often fragmented and difficult to remember. You may be able to recall a specific image or the tone of the dream, but frequently, the information disappears as soon as you open the filing cabinet after waking up. However, the lighting are faint, and the occipital lobe is another fascinating actor. Your major visual processing center is situated toward the rear of the brain. The occipital lobe is very active during REM sleep, which makes it ideal for logical, considering that even those who are born blind frequently have visual dreams, purport having intense sensory dreams that frequently center on touch, sound, and space. For the rest of us, dreams are like short films with a lot of moving parts, unusual camera angles, odd lighting, and landscapes. You're the brain's own a movie studio that doesn't have any eyes. Afterwards, we have something known as pontogeniculo-occipital waves, or PGO waves. The brain's pons are where these waves of neuronal activity begin. Travel through the lateral geniculate after that, nucleus that processes visual information before arriving at the occipital cortex. PGO waves are thought to be crucial in triggering REM sleep, and perhaps some scholars even consider them to be the first act of the dream sequence when it comes to the development of dream imagery. One of the most intriguing things is when someone lowers the lights and pulls back the curtain before the play starts. One aspect of dreaming is how the brain becomes extremely active and oddly disjointed at the same time. There is a discernible drop during REM, the area that assists us with dorsolateral prefrontal cortex activity, acknowledge reality and form opinions, which helps to clarify why your ideal self believes it makes sense to host a tea party on the moon with Steve, a flamingo, when the standard logic and reality systems are absent. The dream world becomes wonderfully or occasionally frighteningly. Furthermore, it's also important to remember that your brain's motor cortex is the area that when you dream, your dream self can run because the controls for movement are activated. Your body doesn't move when you dance, soar, or flail madly because your muscles are momentarily paralyzed by a highly beneficial action taken by a portion of your brainstem. This condition, known as rematonia, prevents you from enacting your dreams in real life. It functions similarly to the brain, makes your muscles tense a tiny bit as your ideal self explores a universe that defies the rules of REM. Sleep is an uncommon condition in physics where this paralysis of the muscles does not work properly. People with behavior disorders may physically to act out their fantasies, which can occasionally result in it serves as a reminder of the amount of work the brain does while we sleep. The level of precision required in the orchestration to maintain the show's flow without creating chaos in the actual world. Thus, sleeping is more than just a passive state. Deep within your whole ensemble of characters is getting ready for a nighttime performance of the memory-sorting hippocampus, the emotion-laden amygdala, the quieted prefrontal cortex, the occipital lobe for visual processing, and the all motor control centers participate in this peculiar, transient phenomena, which we call perhaps the most intriguing aspect of all is that you, the dreamer, hardly ever recall that you may wake up with a fragmented sense after rehearsing the actors or the script, a brief picture, but there was a full-on brain behind that short bit of memory. Creation that is linked together with odd architecture and emotional hue. The next time you find yourself in a dream, remember that neurons are working together in the dark. Whether you're strolling through a somewhat warped world or soaring above cities and sipping tea with historical figures version of your neighborhood supermarket, pause to be amazed, even if the concept that your brain can fabricate a story while you're unconscious is absurd. Imagine that you're dreaming that you're strolling through one of the most amazing and enigmatic objects. The librarian is a talking raccoon in the enormous marshmallow-only library. Through spectacles, everything appears real, and then all of a sudden a silent thought floats through your head. But hold on a second, this is a dream. Then suddenly the entire dream changes, and you realize that you are lucid. One of the most intriguing peculiarities of human awareness is lucid dreaming. It's that instant when you recognize that you are dreaming and that you occasionally have power over what occurs next. You may decide to fly, talk to a long-lost buddy, or, more practically, try to pass through a wall for the duration of your dream. Despite being sidetracked by the carpet, scientists describe the experience as lucid. Dreaming is a state of consciousness that combines REM sleep with waking awareness. While the brain stays awake, the dreamer retains metacognition or self-awareness. In other words, while you are fully submerged in the world of REM-generated imagery, your brain is sleeping, but you've awakened enough to recognize that this is all in what's happening in the brain during REM sleep. When this occurs normally, your brain's logical decision-making region, the prefrontal cortex, your dreams are frequently strange and nonsensical because you are primarily offline. Yet in lucid dreams, researchers have noticed reactivation in specific prefrontal cortex regions, namely the dorsolateral, the prefrontal cortex, linked to self-awareness. And in actuality, lucid dreamers' brain scans reveal a distinct neural signature. REM sleep brain activity combined with the coherence often observed in awake individuals and critical thinking is like opening one eye and silently saying, "Ah, I see what's happening." In sleep labs, some lucid dreamers can even communicate with researchers from within a dream. I've been able to use predetermined eye motions in lucid dreaming, such looking left, right, and left, which external monitoring can identify. This could sound like something from a science fiction book that depicts actual dreamers with their eyes closed. Bodies continue to transmit faint Morse code messages from within there. It's the closest we've come to communicating with the dreamers in real time. Now, some people inadvertently experience lucid dreams. They could be when you're in the middle of an unusual or intense dream and you think it can't be real. Lucidity suddenly appears. However, there are several well-known people who consciously teach themselves to have lucid dreams. The mild method for this one is mnemonic induction of lucid dreams, which entail waking up after roughly 5 hours of sleep and concentrating on the desire to become aware that you're dreaming and to repeat a line, such as, "Next time I'm dreaming, I'll remember I'm dreaming," is like sowing a seed of awareness when you go back asleep. Then there's the wild technique, where you hope it blossoms while you dream. The objective of initiated lucid dreaming, which is a little more complex, is to remain if you can remain conscious while your body sleeps. You can go straight from awareness to a lucid dream, which is similar to entering a separate area in your head. difficult, and it may result in strange symptoms like paralysis during sleep or hypnagogic hallucinations. Yet for certain dreamers, it serves as a potent entryway to complete control. Another popular technique is the reality check, which is asking yourself surroundings all day long. Am I dreaming? By doing this regularly, raise the likelihood that you'll ask the same query in your dreams and come to understand it to find out if it's true. Some people attempt inserting a finger into their palm or checking a clock twice. Alterations. These reality tests frequently fall short in dreams in glaringly evident ways. If you can read a sentence twice or thrust your hand through a wall to acquire two distinct meanings, it's likely that you're dreaming. So why would anyone want lucid? For some people, dreaming is just a way to have fun and explore imaginary worlds. For some, it's beneficial to explore regions that are inaccessible or breathe underwater. Lucid dreaming has been utilized by those with persistent nightmares, particularly those associated with PTSD, to imagine being able to turn around and confront the monster in your reoccurring dreams. You're not real and this is my dream. For some people, that moment was a nightmare. Of control can be extremely restorative, and lucid dreaming is a creative playground. Writers, musicians, painters, and even scientists have investigated concepts. Inside dream interruption is a well-known technique that Salvador Dali employed to mine his lucid dreams. Christopher Nolan's propensity for bizarre visuals even stated that Inception was influenced by lucid dreaming, which makes perfect sense when, despite the thrill, you continue to consider it. Lucid dreaming isn't some people can learn it with practice, but everyone feels it effortlessly. While some people may live their entire lives unaware that they are dreaming, there is no guilt in attempting to. First of all, keep in mind that different people have different dreams, and even those who experience lucid dreams frequently describe that their degree of control varies. Sometimes, when writing the dream, they are just a little more conscious, and other times, they may form the dream like clay. Wave. There are some restrictions as well, because lucid dreaming can occur at too much intentional practice at the intersection of sleep and wakefulness, particularly like everything else. Methods that disrupt sleep cycles can lower the quality of your sleep. About striking a balance. Pursuing your dreams should complement your sleep, not interfere with it. Imagine going to a fantasy garden. It's a lovely location to explore, but one you don't have to give it your whole attention every night. In the end, lucid dreaming is one of those wonders of the human mind that serve as a reminder of how adaptable, odd, and our consciousness is truly enigmatic. Regardless of whether you've had a single lucid dream or the brain's ability to become conscious of itself while dreaming is an absolute necessity, incredible cerebral gymnastics accomplishment. And the next time you're dreaming, maybe flying under a changing color sky or touring a glass castle, you are aware that a faint voice in the back of your mind may say, "This isn't real," and everyone enjoys a nice dream, so you might just smile and take off. Exploring unattainable places, while floating among clouds or discovering a bakery that specializes in your favorite dessert from childhood. However, not all dreams are composed of marshmallows and whimsy. Occasionally your dozing brain lowers the volume and shuts off the lights. Awake and presents a nightmare that is far less consoling. The emotional storms of our dream world are nightmares. They wake us up and make our hearts race. They frequently linger like a fog long after dawn. But what exactly makes you have nightmares, and why does your mind seem to go blank? It is a method of frightening you as you sleep, exactly when you are attempting to unwind. Let's begin with the fundamentals. A nightmare is a strong, unsettling dream that usually happens while you're in REM sleep, the same stage that gives you the most of your dreamlike cinematic experiences. The emotional tone differs, and your typical REM dream may be strange or confusion during a nightmare intensifies the situation and frequently causes worry and panic. You may dream of falling, being hunted, being lost, or even feeling ashamed, someone you care about, or being dreadfully unprepared for a significant event, such as taking the stage. Without the majority of people occasionally have dreams when they are wearing clothes and have no idea why they are suddenly clutching a goldfish, and while a little unnerving, they're quite common. However, when nightmares start to happen frequently or recurring ones may begin to affect mental health and sleep quality, and even in real life. This condition is called nightmare disorder, and it's more prevalent than you may imagine, particularly in those who have experienced trauma or high levels of stress. In fact, several experts have found a high correlation between dreams and actual emotional events. Think that nightmares assist the brain handle challenging emotions in a manner comparable to that of ordinary dreams. But think of it like you're thinking. They do this with a sort of high voltage intensity, attempting to mentally prepare you for danger by simulating the worst-case situations, or in this regard, dreams may actually be psychologically protective, if you will, a very uncomfortable fire drill, but one that could be helpful. And for trauma survivors frequently relive the incident in their nightmares, either literally or this is particularly true symbolically for PTSD sufferers, whose nightmares can become locked loops, making the dreamer endure traumatic events repeatedly, night after night. This is where therapies such as imagery rehearsal therapy, which is a method that entails rewriting the nightmare when awake, altering the narrative to something less terrible, then practicing the updated version frequently over time, which can lessen your brain uses the frequency and severity of the nightmares to communicate that we've learned what we needed to. However, not all frightening sleep experiences are nightmares, so you may move on from this moment. Night terrors, often known as sleep terrors, are another less well-known group, a whole distinct kind of beast. Terrors typically happen during deep non-REM sleep, especially in the evening, as opposed to vivid, dreamy nightmares, more like unexpected panic attacks that burst from the brainstem. Nocturnal terrors can cause a person to sit bolt upright, scream, thrash, or seem terrified and sweaty, yet they're not completely conscious. Although their eyes may be open, they are inaccessible, much like a phone. When there is no one on the other end of the phone, they frequently won't remember the incident. Children are far more likely than adults to experience night terrors the following morning, and the majority of when children outgrow their parents. It can be upsetting to watch, but they are mostly benign and unrelated to long-term mental health problems. Even now, nobody likes to watch a child cry into space at 2 in the morning, especially if all you did was tuck them up. Adults with a bedtime tale about amiable woodland animals, although they are less common, night terrors might be linked to stress and sleep issues, or specific drugs. They aren't really dreams at all, more akin to a malfunction between sleep stages in which the brain becomes trapped in the middle of profound sleep, and it feels as though your body and mind are engaged in a tug-of-war with the switch labeled awareness, followed by slumber, the unsettling relative of nightmares and night terrors. When your mind awakens before your body does, you experience paralysis, which is the inability to move frequently. Condition is followed by weird chest pressure, hallucinations, and shadows in the room. Historically, these occurrences were attributed to demons, witches, or evil forces, spirits. We now understand that it's a normal malfunction in the REM sleep mechanism where the muscle paralysis that protects you while you dream lasts a bit too long after you wake up. Despite the terrible feeling, sleep paralysis is generally temporary, within minutes or seconds, but in the present, it may feel as though you're stuck in your own body is literally a waking nightmare. So why does the brain have one notion is that it has a flair at frightening itself? Evolution has a stake in you remembering possible threats because emotions are just more remembered. To recall a forest fire escape dream rather than one about enjoying a delicious sandwiching, the emotional charge increases the likelihood that you will learn from the dream and helps you remember it. Fear is an effective instructor from a survival standpoint. However, the distinction between not all dreams and nightmares are the same. Some are exciting but not, some are really unnerving, without being obtrusive or theatrical, while others are frightening. The emotional tone varies from person to person, and what worries one person may make another laugh when they dream about public speaking could frighten someone who has stage fright, whereas someone else might love the attention even. Additionally, dreamland nightmares might act as an odd sort of mirror reflecting our innermost anxieties, tensions, and unresolved disputes. They reveal what's beneath the reveal, the anxieties we haven't expressed and the tension we haven't completely dealt with. And although it may cause discomfort, it may also be a step in the right direction. The message in your brain is, look, I know this is scary, but we need to talk about it. Fortunately, most individuals don't experience nightmares every night. They're intense, definitely, but only sometimes, typically brief. But for individuals who do encounter them more frequently, there are resources to assist with sleep hygiene and through focused dream approaches, stress management, and therapy. We've discovered ways to reconcile with the shadows in the dream realm. Therefore, if you've lately experienced a chaseaful nightmare when you feel powerless, remember that your brain may be attempting to solve a problem, and if your heart was pounding when you woke up, a little shaky but secure in your bed, that's your brain's method of telling you that it was merely a dream and that perhaps the following one will include a softer activity, such as a snooze on a floating leaf or a talk to an elderly turtle. In either case, you'll be alright. Sleep is frequently thought of as a time to relax, rejuvenate, and gently escape the planet for some time. But your dreams don't always catch the message. They just walk in and ask whether now is a good time to work through repressed feelings, altering your memories, donning metaphorical disguises, and occasionally throwing. It turns out that dreams and mental health are related in a ridiculous storyline about cats and elevators, are intimately connected, much like two dancers flowing through the night under the influence of one another. The other, frequently in subtle and surprising ways. Occasionally dreams mirror our emotional state, sometimes they intensify it, and occasionally they may even be attempting to aid in our recovery. Let's begin with the obvious. When you're anxious or stressed when overstimulated, your dreams will likely become louder, and not literally, unless you dream in surround sound, but the content is louder, making them more emotive and vivid. More chaotic dreams might occasionally involve being hunted, lost, unprepared, or trapped in where the emotional upheaval in your waking life can be reflected in these dreams. Researchers have long noted that abstract art is a representation of your inner condition. For instance, those who are depressed frequently report having more bad dreams. Their dreams could feel repetitious, ponderous, or emotionally flat. On the other hand, anxiety problems tend to cause the numbness or despair they feel while awake to manifest as nightmares containing social embarrassment or pressure or threat, such as trying to call a number that never works or delivering a speech without trousers. However, there is more to the relationship than only the content of dreams. How their coherence or fragmentation can also change depending on mental health. People who are under severe stress or psychological trauma may have more disjointed, startling nightmares. If there is not enough glue in the brain to handle too much at once, keep everything together. The end effect is a chaotic dream filled of emotional weight but a lack of narrative coherence, which is especially true in cases of PTSD. One of the telltale signs that these are more than just awful dreams is nightmares. They frequently repeatedly relive the painful experience while in REM. For PTSD sufferers, sleep is typically a useful adaptive place for processing emotions. That mechanism appears to malfunction, rather than healing the wound, and the dream keeps happening. Interestingly, not all REM is the same in healthy people. It's like a stuck record. Sleeping with REM seems to lessen the emotional pain of challenging memories you can still remember the incident, but its emotional impact has diminished. When the desensitization process doesn't seem to be working effectively in traumatized individuals, the dream gets more of a re-traumatization rather than a relief. Which is why dream therapy, such as the vision rehearsal therapy we discussed before, it can be so strong by altering a recurrent nightmare script while people are awake and practicing the updated version. Progressively alter the subject matter of their dreams and lessen the intensity of their emotions. It's similar to providing the think of a new play to perform that is more resolved and less terrifying. However, dreaming is influenced by more than simply mental health. It can also be influenced by the strategies we employ to cope with it. Antidepressants, for example. A variety of drugs that influence serotonin and two important brain chemicals that influence mood and sleep are norepinephrine and reduce REM sleep completely, which results in fewer dreams that are remembered. When the dosage is changed, some induce REM rebound, which can result in abruptly experiencing extremely vivid emotions. Having vivid dreams isn't always a bad thing. It's only a reflection of how your brain is a system after all, and sleep, mood, and dreaming are all interconnected, not a collection of distinct divisions. Instead, alter one component, and everywhere there is a ripple. There is also increasing interest in using dreams as a window into mental health. Even though academics are still a long way from employing dreams as diagnostic tools, are investigating how dream content could be used to identify changes in mental health, particularly when paired with AI models may be developed in the future based on sleep habits and other cognitive indicators, trained to use dream narratives to identify early indicators of anxiety or despair. However, let's face it, telling a robot about a broccoli-flying fantasy might always feel a little ridiculous, but it's evident that dreams are incredibly intimate and can disclose emotional truths that we haven't spoken aloud. They can represent our aspirations and anxieties, and the complex middle ground, where those two coexist, and dreams can occasionally provide a form of symbolic solace by giving things to shape when the outside world feels overwhelming. We still lack terms to describe the evidence that suggests dreams could be beneficial for therapy clients. Emotional development and problem solving will occasionally dream about tough choices or unresolved emotions, and during the dream doesn't provide them a neatly wrapped response. Rather, it frequently helps people get closer to understanding. It's the brain's method of subtly, it's not always true to remark, you're working on this even if you don't realize it. Some dreams are just strange and fragmented, or they are obviously influenced by overindulging in late-night snacks is acceptable as well. Not all dreams must be a floating platypus with a bow tie. Can occasionally be just that, a floating platypus. But when dreams do awaken, when they bring up a worry you haven't fully confronted or reaffirm the stress you've been suppressing, it's worth it. Taking a moment to observe, not to overthink, not to panic, just observe that your dreaming mind is a part of you and not anything distinct from it. Your nocturnal self is attempting to be understood in its own peculiar language. Therefore, if you're struggling and your nightmares seem more sinister, greater intensity, treat yourself with kindness, because your mind is still processing, continuing to function even in the dark. And if your dreams are quieter or gentler, positive, remember that sometimes our subconscious guides us. Dreams are ultimately a step toward healing before we're even conscious enough to notice it. Not merely idle thoughts, they participate in the ongoing discussion between your heart, body, and brain. And like all excellent talks, you've certainly seen it before, but sometimes the most significant events take place late at night while everything else is still in the dark. Dog on the floor, peacefully sleeping, paws wiggling, tail flickering, possibly even a cat sprawled out on a windowsill, or a few muffled barks. It appears to be pursuing something while it sleeps, with its whiskers moving and its legs paddling. The answer to the question of whether animals dream is most likely yes. Naturally, they are unable to tell us about it. No golden retriever has taken the time to explain their dream over a field of tennis balls that fly, but science has provided us with some hints, and the proof is quite persuasive. Let's begin with the fundamentals. Practically all mammals and a large number of birds encounter REM sleep, which is the same stage of sleep that people spend the most of their rapid eye movement. Or dream REM is characterized by erratic brain activity, brief paralysis of the muscles, and yes, flitting eye motions while the eyes are closed in animals. The twitching of the eyelids appears extremely familiar. It's like a silent movie with the blinking eyes and the occasional meow or sleep bark playing behind their eyes. But brain scans provide more convincing proof. Rats were trained to navigate a maze in an infamous MIT study when their brain activity was captured, particular neuronal patterns would fire. Their brains played a type of song while the rats navigated the maze. Later, as the rats slept, researchers solved the problem and saw those precise REM sleep. The identical brain patterns were replayed, giving the impression that the rats were returning to the maze in their dreams, possibly strengthening the same song was played as a memory or mental drill for the challenge the next day. But now the birds also shown evidence of dreaming, such as zebrafinches. When the lights were out, their intricate singing habit has been investigated, and as they sleep, their brains replicate the neuronal processes utilized and they seem to be rehearsing their songs during unconscious dream karaoke, rather than singing. However, current research indicates that reptiles, which were previously believed to be too simple, are not limited to mammals and birds. For RM, certain lizard species may also experience a sort of dreamy sleep, display sleep cycles with both REM and non-REM sleep-like activity. Although research in this field is still in its infancy, it presents an intriguing idea that dreaming may be a significantly earlier evolutionary feature than we previously thought. In fact, the more we examine the animals with more complicated brains and emotional lives tend to exhibit a sort of dreaming continuum. Dolphins, for instance, have unusual sleep patterns that are more overt indications of REM sleep, wherein only one hemisphere of the brain sleeps at a time, making dreaming more difficult but not necessarily impossible. Primates and elephants have both been shown to exhibit REM sleep when in a supine position. Our dreams are very similar to those of our near-evolutionary cousins. So what? Well, we can. The main question is whether animals truly dream about that. We can't ask a cat, "Did you dream about?" since we can't examine brain patterns and activities. Hunting or a squirrel, "Did you visit an amusement park with a little nut theme?" However, we're able to make some educated predictions. Animals most likely dream about things that are important to them when they are roaming their area. Hunting, playing, eating, and social bonding may not all have symbolic meanings. Allegorical, similar to how human dreams can occasionally be strange or devoid of existential sorrow, metaphors, but they're probably based on experience. Much like dreams might perform comparable tasks in all animals, including memory consolidation, emotional control, and behavioral practice. For a mouse's dreams could help reinforce how to navigate a maze. For a dog, it could be a reenactment of a park walk, or perhaps it's galloping across the street with a neighbor's puppy. For a horse, there is even some evidence that animals can have nightmares, a field that only exists in their minds. Stressed exposed lab rats exhibit varying REM sleep patterns, sometimes fragmented, sometimes more vivid, and they might steer clear of certain areas of the maze they investigated in an unpleasant dream in the past. This implies that animals utilize dreams to handle challenging or frightening situations, just like humans do. Events that are quite depressing to think about, yet they serve as a reminder that dreaming is closely related to the brain's emotional life. But what about our pets? The cats snoring peacefully on the windowsill and the dog snuggled up at our feet. Researchers think that what's happening behind those drowsy eyelids in smaller dogs, such as poodles or dachshunds, often experience vivid dreams, enter REM sleep more often, but larger breeds might remain in REM for longer. Your dog probably dreams about you, their human companion. Even though we are unable to know the exact content because since cats play such an important role in their lives, they are naturally a little more enigmatic, but they also dream. In the 1960s, research on cats allowed researchers to initially comprehend the link between REM sleep and cats would misbehave when researchers temporarily blocked the area of the brain responsible for REM paralysis. Although they were sound asleep, their dreams of stalking, bouncing, and even grooming it was the first concrete evidence that animals don't simply sleep. Instead, they create entire narratives in their brains. Additionally, dreaming in animals presents intriguing philosophical issues. If do rats have a feeling of self in their dreams? Can they tell one animal from another? Among the imagined and the actual, and most fascinatingly, what might a dream feel like to a species that is incapable of putting it into words? Perhaps dreaming is one of all living things, no matter how big or small, can use those universal brain languages to replay, recall, and consider whether it's not exclusively human, after all. But nighttime is something that is ingrained in life itself, a place where memory and instinct converge in a gentle, peaceful, and invisible way. Thus, the next time your cat chirps softly into the night, or your dog kicks their legs while they sleep, let them be. They go through dream postmen and bark at them or chase dreamers in landscapes that are genuine even though you can't see them in the only how dreams are. And you may grin as you fall asleep tonight, knowing that you're for the majority of human history, and other species has been dreaming nearby. Dreams have been personal, a world viewed by one individual only, brief, enigmatic, and frequently forgotten by morning. You may awaken with the shards of a story still in your mind, a face, a location, or an odd feeling that you've experienced, but are attempting to describe it to someone else, and the enchantment eludes your grasp. Up until lately, dreams were like murmurs in a locked chamber, but now the lock is being picked at by scientists. Greetings from the bizarre and somewhat sci-fi realm of dream recording, where a little bit of awe and neuroscience technology come together to try to do what it initially appeared hard to interpret: the dreaming mind. Yet it begins like many other cerebral activities do with EEG has long been employed by researchers in machines and squiggly lines when used to track brainwaves as you sleep. Electroencephalography (EEG) is excellent for monitoring the various phases of sleep, including REM, deep sleep, and light sleep. However, it doesn't reveal what person is dreaming about. Thus, you need a more comprehensive image, which is when functional magnetic resonance imaging (fMRI) imaging, which enables researchers to determine which areas of the brain are active and when. The ATR computational facility in Japan hosted one of the most intriguing experiments in this field. Researchers in neuroscience labs invited individuals to doze off in an fMRI machine, which is, let's face it, arguably the world's least conducive to restful slumber. Nevertheless, the subjects were able to fall asleep, and the researchers observed their brain activity in the early phases of sleep when fleeting dream imagery starts. And this is the shrewd part: before the participants in the experiment were shown hundreds of pictures of animals, buildings, and people, items while they were conscious, and each image was produced by recording their brain activity, a type of neural fingerprint, a pattern of visual brain activity that, when comparable, occurs while you're asleep. When patterns emerged, the researchers could contrast them with the data from the waking period, and the team was able to predict the person's image with almost 60% accuracy. Imagining whether it was a person, a book, a vehicle, or a tree, they could recognize what was being imagined, but they were unable to explain the dream's plot or feelings. It was the first 60% may not sound like the true peek behind the curtain of a sleeping mind, like a lot, but since we're discussing speculating about ideas based on neurological patterns in a sleeping brain, it's amazing. It was like observing someone's dreams from a distance. But at the University of California, several trials have advanced in poor resolution and without sound. Using fMRI data, researchers created a model to replicate what people saw while they were awake. Reconstructions based on preliminary brain activity pictures were hazy and unrealistic, similar to subliminal impressionist paintings, yet they provided a sneak peek at what might be. Can we see someone's dream on a screen in the future? Not quite, but the foundation is scientists are able to recognize specific types of material that track emotions, tone that determines which parts of the brain light up in certain situations, even detect. The technique is limited for some forms or items, but dream reading could grow better with the development of AI and neural decoding, more precise, quicker, and sharper in the years to come, which naturally raises some dreams are private by nature, yet they raise highly important and moral issues. They are among the last unrestricted ways to express oneself, and since no one else can follow them, if the time comes, what happens to that privacy when we are able to precisely capture or decipher dreams? Will the contents of our subconscious be legally protected, or will we need dream passwords? As neurochemistry develops, these questions are no longer only hypothetical. Lawmakers and ethicists are already debating the necessity of what are referred to be basic protections for neuro rights, for freedom of thought, mental privacy, and the sacredness of the self, because there's something sacrosanct about sharing your dreams like YouTube videos, even though it could be entertaining. Considering that dreams belong to you and you alone, there are some imagine the potential beauty of dream recording for those who are unable to communicate, such as those with communication difficulties, talk, write, or express themselves outside. If we could eventually transform their aspirations into words or pictures, we may be able to access their inner selves in a previously unattainable manner. Or think about the possibility that a psychologist could identify trends in a person's dreams throughout time. It could provide a fresh instrument for recurrent symbols, emotional arcs, and unresolved conflicts. Using your brain waves to power your dream journal to understand mental health. Some scientists are even incorporating some humor into their work by experimenting with what's known as targeted dream incubation, which entails playing particular words or sounds while you sleep to subtly direct the information in a dream, such as when learning a new language. May hear words to help them remember things while they sleep, or if they want to dream about something like flying, they may hear. It's not a full-blown dream if there are background wind sounds or subtle indications of the sky control, but it's a soft prod in a certain direction. Dreams they are emotionally layered and still far too complicated to fully grasp. Heated and frequently irrational, making them difficult for even the dreamer to understand, not to mention someone attempting to read them from a second-hand perspective. but we're getting closer to knowing how the brain creates these inner worlds and perhaps getting closer to bringing things into the light. So before you go to bed tonight, take a moment to acknowledge the subtle mystery that lies behind your eyelids, your brain to enter a world of your own creation that is unrecorded, unfiltered, and exclusively yours. No machine can now follow you there, which may be advantageous because there's something charming about the notion that some stories are kept as whispers. Even in this day of data and decoding, we have explored a dark, sealed room that is painted sceneries of the dreaming mind, ranging from philosophical conjectures and jerking lab rats to REM sleep memory recovery and dogs barking while they sleep. But there's one final question before we drift off near the finish of our peaceful adventure. It's worthwhile to inquire about the direction of everything and what dreams are ahead. The truth is that, for the first time in human history, we are on the verge of something extraordinary. History, technology, neurobiology, and even our tools are catching up to our questions. Artificial intelligence is merging in intriguing and lovely ways to providing not only glimmers of the dreaming mind, but the capacity to mold, enhance, and perhaps even share the field of focused dream incubation to get things started. That's a real term that's expanding quickly. And the concept is straightforward if you give. You may be able to change the content of dreams by giving the brain a little prod before or during sleep. Naturally, have total control over them, but guide them like a canoe on a calm river. Studies have previously demonstrated that playing particular phrases or sounds during particular sleep stages might cause associated dream images of people sleeping with the aroma of roses, for example. Those who hear a voice stating are more likely to report having good dreams. A tree may dream of a forest, and well-timed subtle clues can change a dream's content without completely waking the sleeper. It's not mind control. It's more akin to mental gardening, where you plant a seed and watch it grow. Imagine combining that with sleep technology. Headbands that may be worn to track your one-day could be able to direct your dreams with brainwaves, or headphones that only provide cues during REM, rehearse speeches, or gently work through emotional obstacles to help overcome challenges. Prototype gadgets and software already exist that purport to accomplish this. Although science is still in its infancy, science fiction has evolved. Speaking about fiction, let's discuss one of our first fantasies is dream sharing, which is the notion that two people can have the same dream, or we could capture and replay a dream like a movie that we're not even close to yet. But as we previously mentioned, researchers are beginning to decode using fMRI and machine learning. Visual dream material is still hazy, like looking through frosted glass at dreams, but the door is broken. Perhaps in the future, we might be able to transform those pieces of dreams into preliminary drawings, or even animations, of which you could view a prototype. Your own dream the next morning, or tell a buddy about a bizarre dream recall that doesn't, because it captures some of the tone, feel, and enchantment of a dream diary while remaining completely precise. It made evident. Yet even as we look further, moral dilemmas are emerging. Quietly in the background, may dreams be guided by us? Altered? Could they be abused if we are able to read them? And what occurs when the distinction between technology and sleep becomes hazy, which is why the concept of neurorights has begun to speak up in favor of the rights to mental privacy, autonomy, and freedom of. Because if dreams represent the final unexplored area of the mind, we ought to step slowly and cautiously, as though you were entering someone else's sacred space. There are also opportunities for recovery. Picture a time in the future when PTSD sufferers get individualized dream therapy with auditory cues or soft brain stimulation to facilitate safer reprocessing of traumatic memories, or where kids with anxiety are taught to use guided narratives to mold their dreams, transforming anxieties into experiences, or where senior citizens with memory loss relive past times in dreams supported by subliminal clues from images, music, or sense. Lucid dreaming may also become more popular, not as a means of escape, but as an instrument for learning, creativity, and emotional development. Researchers are looking into how lucid dreamers might use their dreams to practice practical life skills, such as playing an instrument or getting ready for a challenging talk. The brain ultimately doesn't, if your dream self-practices, completely differentiate between the bodily rehearsal and the imagined activity. Compassion, bravery, or kindness might also assist your waking self. Artificial intelligence (AI) is being trained for purposes other than brain analysis activities, but to identify trends, propose topics in dreams, and even construct some virtual reality. Developers have created interactive settings that resemble dreams, are experimenting with settings that feel less like games and are inspired by dreams and react to emotions. It's wild and a little bit like lucid dreams that you can explore when you're awake. Unusual and only just getting started. But despite all of this brilliant technology, there's something subtly it's comforting to know that dreaming fundamentally doesn't require technology, require an app, a lab, or a headband. Your brain is already equipped with all it needs to. All you need is sleep to dream. Remember to process, create, and wonder. maybe a little curiosity, as dreams serve as a reminder that the mind is a storyteller, a traveler, and a human being, replaying old scenes and creating new ones with a soft projector in the dark. The future of dream science may be awkward at times, profound at others, and always personal. Introduce new resources, techniques, and methods of communication. The sheer wonder of waking up with an odd image blinking in your mind, however, will never be completely replaced by it. Where did that come from? In the early light. And perhaps that's at their core. Dreams will always have a place in our lives, regardless of how far science advances. Little poetry, a little mystery, a place where the mind can expand and snuggle up itself and floats, to a place that only it knows how to go, so it can get a good night's sleep tonight. Dream freely and remember that your mind is still active even as science observes from the sidelines. Night every night, silently penning its own tales with its eyes closed in the oldest language it is aware of. So now we are floating back from the unfamiliar. We have cautiously navigated through REM cycles in the lovely realm of dreams, strolled through memory hallways, heard the amygdala murmuring, and even peeked a brief look at the direction of dream science. Shows that dreams aren't, simply put, they are stories your brain tells itself at night, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes deep, always personal. What we currently understand is astounding, but perhaps even more amazing is what we don't know because of all the brain scans and neurological maps. Dreams continue to elude explanation and are, in many respects, the poetry, science, and spirit in your thoughts. So as you fall asleep tonight, whether your mind transports you to a peaceful reminiscence or an amazing journey so you don't have to comprehend every aspect, it's strange and defies logic. Simply relax. Your brain is capable of handling this. And if this movie has, I'm sorry if I made you a bit too enthralled to sleep, but I hope that at least you have gained some knowledge along the way. If you liked this leisurely trip through the dormant, brain-eyed, I would be sincerely appreciative if you could leave a comment, subscribe to Science in Slippers, or give the video a gentle thumbs up. I'd love to know below where you're listening from tonight and what time it is where you are. Where this tiny cloud of peace has sunk. Until the next time, rest well and dream freely, and keep in mind that even in the darkest good, your mind is still creating stories. Evening.